Who was the one that called him Leon the Gentle Breeze? Hima no Mugaku. Episode 1, The Reincarnation Destination, is exactly as expected. I used to wonder about those near-death experiences you see on TV, where they say that even after the heart stops, the brain keeps functioning for a while. Turns out that might actually be true. The reason I am thinking about something like that is because I went mountain stream fishing and got caught in a torrential downpour. The weather forecast said sunny with occasional clouds. I thought maybe there might be a little drizzle, but it turned into a full-on downpour. When it rains, the mountain stream inevitably swells, so I needed to evacuate. Running downstream would take too long, so I grabbed onto the slope and began climbing. The ground, the trees I tried to grab, and the grass were all soaked by the heavy rain and extremely slippery. It was difficult, but when I finally reached a place that seemed safe, even if the water rose, I felt relieved. Looking down, the rain had already begun raising the river level. I gave up on the idea of walking down the river to return. Waiting here for the rain to stop would not help. So if I climbed higher and crossed one mountain ridge, I should reach the prefectural road. While climbing the slope searching for somewhere to shelter from the rain, I found a small hollow in the slope where bamboo grass hung over like a roof. Fortunately, the fallen leaves on the ground were still dry. It seemed like a good place to camp if necessary, so I decided to use it. Whenever I go mountain stream fishing, I always carry camping gear and emergency food. Under the bamboo leaves that worked like an awning, I changed out of my wet clothes and stepped deeper inside. The moment I realized something was wrong, my body stopped moving. Damn it. It seems I stepped into a spot where dry leaves had piled up in the hollow. I do not feel pain from any injury, but if my body will not move, then maybe it is oxygen deprivation from inert gas. If I die in a place like this, no one will even find my body. Even while thinking that, my consciousness does not fade. On the contrary, even though I cannot feel my arms or legs, my mind remains completely clear. No gods appear either. God, Buddha, Allah, whichever God it is. If my consciousness still exists, then please let me enter the cycle of reincarnation, or should I pray to Buddha instead? In that hazy state, it felt like a very long time passed. Then suddenly I felt like I was floating, or maybe falling. My body, my mind was being pulled somewhere, and then I was thrown from a warm place into a slightly cold place. It took a while before I realized this was a new birth. Every day I burp, someone pats my back, and I get laid down in a bed. Once I started being able to see my surroundings, just as I expected, I had become a baby. There is no doubt that this is reincarnation, but my memories are perfectly clear. Koichi Takasu, Japanese. Died at age 27. Caught in a torrential rainstorm while mountain stream fishing and died in an accident while evacuating. Well, it will probably just be treated as a disappearance during a fishing trip. My car was parked in an open lot downstream, so they will probably search for me. But with weather like that, they will likely assume I was swept away and eventually call off the search. My relationship with my family was neither particularly good nor bad. It was rather distant. Even if someone like me who lived alone disappeared, I doubt they would grieve that much. The life insurance policy is not a huge amount, but the accidental death clause should at least help my parents a bit in their old age. The only regret I have is that I wanted to know how the light novel I was reading would end. But there is nothing I can do about that, so I gave up. Once I could look around properly, I realized we lived in a stone house and seemed rather poor. However, my mother was beautiful. I was delighted by the magnificent sight of her chest, but losing to my hunger was a once-in-a-lifetime disgrace. And just when I was lamenting that disgrace, I discovered that magic exists. After changing my diaper, my mother said clean, and I was wrapped in a faint light and felt completely refreshed. There is still far too little information, but it seems this is a world where magic exists. And it was so similar to the typical Isekai reincarnation stories from light novels that I almost laughed. But since the only sounds I could make were baby babbling like ah and it did not even come out as laughter. I began practicing baby sounds, but a problem appeared. Because I was born with memories from my previous life, I could not carelessly speak. By listening to my parents and siblings speak, I gradually came to understand the language of this world. But if I suddenly started speaking fluently, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. As a result, I ended up pretending to be a quiet child, and people began to think I was a silent and stubborn kid. After all, I was reborn from the Heisei era of Japan into an unfamiliar world. It is only natural that my way of thinking would not match theirs. I have 2 parents, an older sister, and 2 older brothers. Since my parents are usually out working, my older sister takes care of me. Even though she is 9 years older, in Japan she would still just be an elementary school student. My 2 brothers are basically still little brats as well, so we cannot really have proper conversations. By the time I turned 5, I had begun to understand a little about this world, and it was almost exactly like the worlds described in light novels. I became convinced that light novel authors must have reincarnated from this world into Japan. Or maybe it is the opposite. Perhaps someone reincarnated here from Earth and adjusted the measurement systems to match their previous world. Then reincarnated again back to Japan. Ugh, thinking about it is exhausting. One day has 24 hours. 1 month has 30 days. 1 year has 360 days and 12 months, with no leap years. A week has 6 days and only 5 weeks per month. Very simple. As for the moon, I have not seen it yet, but I hope it is not some giant red moon. The currency is coin-based and uses the decimal system. The unit is called dara. The smallest coin is 100 dara. Iron coin is 100 dara. Copper coin is 1,000 dara. Silver coin is 10,000 dara. Gold coin is 100,000 dara. There are no coins below 100 dara, so goods are sold bundled, starting at that price. If they had something like Edo period 1 mon coins, counting them would be a nightmare and they would be too heavy. This system seems reasonable. Units of length are centimeters, meters, and kilometers. Weight uses grams, kilograms, and tons. Familiar units. I am grateful to whatever reincarnated person set that up. The setting is like medieval Europe often seen in light novels. A world far from mechanical civilization where magic and skills exist. So far, I have only seen my mother use everyday life magic, so I do not know what other kinds of magic exist. Still, part of me is getting excited, but independence is still a long way off. By carefully listening to conversations and avoiding suspicious questions that might reveal knowledge from my previous life, I eventually pieced together my family situation. My father Harold is 60 years old. My mother Betty is 54. My older sister Belinda is 15, 9 years older than me. My oldest brother Morris is 13, 7 years older. My second brother Ralph is 10, 4 years older. And I am the youngest child, the third son, currently 6 years old and born in June. My sister Belinda was born in January and is 15. During the blessing ceremony, she received water magic, the alchemy skill, the cooking skill, and the sewing skill. Taking advantage of that, I asked Belinda many questions about magic. Apparently, this world has the 10 great magics and countless skills, all granted by the creator goddess Felicien. Even if someone does not receive a skill, with enough training they might become even better than someone who did. Because Belinda received the alchemy skill, she plans to become a pharmacist once she completes the rite of independence. The 10 great magics are wind magic, water magic, fire magic, earth magic, lightning magic, ice magic, barrier magic, teleportation magic, storage magic, and healing magic. Skills include things like the alchemy skill Belinda received, as well as appraisal skills useful for work. There are also life skills such as cooking and sewing. If someone excels greatly at something, even if others do not recognize it, that ability can manifest as a skill. One somewhat well-known skill is the tamer skill. Normally it is used to control cattle or horses. However, some adventurers raise beasts from infancy and control them, and in those cases they apparently gain the tamer skill. According to the neighborhood women gossiping by the well, my father works at an ale brewery, my mother helps with cooking at a hotel dining hall. As the youngest of 4 siblings and the third son, depending on the result of my blessing ceremony, I will probably have to become an apprentice somewhere or become an adventurer. From the age of 9, I began attending church to learn basic education. Before long, my life magic manifested. My mother and sister were delighted and immediately went to the church. After making a generous donation, they had my magic power measured, and it turned out to be 27. Life magic can be used if someone has at least 7 magic power. With 27 magic power, the probability of receiving true magic is apparently high. However, there are people with around 10 magic power who cannot use life magic. My second brother Ralph has 8 magic power and falls into that category. When Ralph heard about my magic power, he became upset. Among our family of 6, he is the only one who cannot use life magic. My father and oldest brother can barely use it and have magic power of 12 and 11. My mother and sister have 16 and 25, which means I currently have the highest magic power in the family. Magic power can usually be measured around age 10 when life magic appears. Frail people tend to have magic power below 10. People with magic power below 5 almost never survive past the age of 10. Those between 5 and 10 often have weak bodies. If someone has over 20 magic power when life magic manifests, their chance of receiving real magic increases greatly. My sister Belinda received water magic and her magic power increased to 60. However, the blessing ceremony is tricky. Even though the maximum magic power during the life magic stage is around 29, there is still no guarantee of receiving magic. Out of 100 participants, only around 20 to 30 receive magic. Even if they receive magic, if their magic power does not increase much, they quickly run out of magic and collapse. Because of that, people who originally have low magic power often do not even participate in the ceremony. Even among those who receive attack magic or healing magic and have magic power over 75, fewer than half can freely use magic. I am the youngest and third son among 4 siblings. My sister Belinda is training at the Pharmacist Guild, but it will take time before she becomes fully qualified. My oldest brother Morris says that once he undergoes the Rite of Independence this year, he will work as an apprentice at the ale brewery where our father works. My second brother Ralph will turn 13 this year and finish basic education. He plans to help at the hotel while earning some pocket money and searching for work. My mother decided to teach me how to sense pools of magic power and the basics of magic control. At that moment, I learned for the first time that my mother is half catfolk and half elf. That surprised me. My mother is very beautiful, but her appearance is closer to catfolk. The only obvious elf traits are her beauty and the fact that she is tall for a catfolk. Meanwhile, my father is completely silver wolf tribe in appearance. Silver hair, sharp eyes, and a sturdy physique. From any angle, he looks 100% silver wolf. My sister also resembles my mother, and apparently I do as well, which means I am 1/2 silver wolf, 1/4 catfolk, and 1/4 elf. I never noticed before because I have been used to seeing them since I was a baby. My oldest brother Morris looks like a gentler version of my father. My second brother Ralph apparently looks like a silver wolf with stronger elf traits. When I asked what I looked like, my mother said I still look like a child but resemble her, with stronger catfolk traits. Even though my mother has half elf blood, her magic power is low and she never received true magic. She said it is not that unusual though. Even among full-blooded elves, there are many who have little magic power and never receive magic.
At the age of 15, for the rite of bestowal, I went to the church accompanied by my mother. It was a little embarrassing, but seeing that everyone heading to the ceremony had a parent with them made me feel relieved.
One after another, names were called, and each person stood before the priest, knelt at the altar, and prayed to the image of the goddess Felicienne. Those who received magic or skills were immediately recognized because they were wrapped in a faint light. After that, the priest instructed them to place their palm on the magic power measuring plate. This magic measuring plate allowed confirmation of the magic or skills granted, and the priest would tell them the name of the magic or skill along with their magic power level.
If someone received attack magic, healing magic, or storage magic and their magic power was above 65, cheers would erupt.
I am the third son, but my parents raised all of us equally, so I have never been dissatisfied with my life so far. If it is a job that involves making things, that would be fine, but I am not eager to go out into service for someone else, since work is like an apprenticeship system. If I receive decent magic, I plan to become an adventurer. If I can live a modest life without pushing myself too hard, that will be enough. If possible, I would like to travel around this world. That is about as far as my ambitions go.
Leon, offer a prayer of gratitude to the creator goddess Felicienne for your peaceful daily life.
I stepped forward and knelt before the image of the creator goddess Felicienne.
It does not have to be powerful magic. Please grant me magic that will allow me to live my life.
A faint light flowed behind my closed eyelids, and cheers rose behind me as people realized that I had received magic.
Praying for worldly benefits might be a Japanese habit, but I did not expect my wish to be granted so easily.
Following the priest's instructions, I placed my palm on the magic measuring plate.
Leon, wind magic. As for the skill you desire, that depends on your training, and your magic power is 93.
Hey, wind magic with 93 magic power?
Damn, I got fire magic and my magic power is only 47. I wish we could trade. What does it mean that the skill depends on training?
Wind magic is useless anyway. The goddess was pretty cruel giving that out.
That girl over there got water magic too. Must be an unlucky family.
No. That girl got the compounding skill and is training to become an apothecary. She will earn decent money.
Priest, what do you mean that the desired skill depends on your training?
You know that some skills are granted during the rite of bestowal and others appear later through practice. There are also people who have an easier time acquiring skills.
So if I train, I can obtain the skill I want?
Not exactly. You can only obtain skills that suit you. If someone who wants to be a knight trains for skills that are unnecessary for a knight, it is pointless. But if they practice with swords or spears, swordsmanship or spearmanship skills are more likely to appear.
I see. If I become an adventurer and do the necessary training, it will be easier to gain additional skills. Maybe it is like an option attached to wine magic.
After thanking the priest, I switched places with the next person and returned to my mother. She greeted me with a troubled expression.
Wind magic, huh? You said you wanted to become an adventurer, but wind magic might make that a little difficult.
Most adventurers cannot use magic anyway. I will keep helping Ted and the others for another year. I am already recognized for my skill in gathering medicinal herbs, so I might be able to live just by specializing in that.
That is true. If you can live on your own, then live the way you want. Besides, you can wrap yourself in magic power, right?
You knew?
My mother could do that too. When I saw you using life magic, it reminded me of her. You cannot wrap yourself in magic power unless your control is excellent. When you do it, your 5 senses become sharper, and your life magic becomes stronger than other people's. You are hiding it for Ralph's sake, right?
My brother changed after he realized I could use life magic.
That is simply the will of the gods. There is nothing we can do about it.
Ever since my life magic awakened, my mother taught me how to control magic power. I practiced kneading it and guiding it through my arms. Using knowledge from light novels, I also learned to circulate magic power throughout my entire body and wrap myself in it. When I went out gathering herbs with Ted and the others, I practiced enemy detection and presence sensing while wrapped in magic power. Even if the senses become sharper, it is not omnipotent, and my abilities did not increase dramatically. Since the group Linus's Blast already had a scout named Mince, I kept quiet and hid my abilities. Mince could detect enemies about 60 meters away, while I could only manage around 40, so there was no need to reveal it. Some people also have troublesome personalities, so it is easier if they do not know.
The words, desired skill depends on training, give me hope. I should work hard at practice. As for wind magic, I should start with the classic training of creating a small whirlwind. But it would be better if nobody saw me doing it.
After dinner, I tried the wind magic I had received by aiming out the window.
My magic control is perfect, so I used one portion of magic power out of the 100 I divided earlier. Twister.
I imagined it while quietly releasing my magic power. A cool breeze flowed through the open window. It was dark outside, so I could not see anything.
Well, wind itself cannot really be seen anyway.
I had imagined leaves dancing in the winter wind, so the breeze coming through the window made me feel like the whirlwind had worked. Just as my mother had taught me from what she learned from her own mother, I could feel the magic leaving my arm. The wind that blew in confirmed that the spell worked. Later, as I left home and headed toward the west gate, I wrapped myself in magic power and was surprised that the scenery looked different.
When I realized that what I was seeing was actually the flow of the wind, I was even more shocked. When I returned from the church earlier, I could not see the wind at all. Then I remembered that last night after dinner, I had tried wind magic outside the window. Until the moment I wrapped myself in magic power while walking, everything looked normal. Maybe because I received wind magic and can now use it. When I sharpen my senses with magic power, I can see the wind. If I can see the wind, there are many things I want to try, but I still have a year before leaving home, so there's no need to rush. First, I should obtain and polish the skills needed for adventurers.
As usual, I waited at the west gate. Soon Ted arrived at the front of the group Linus's Blast.
Leon, did you receive any magic?
Yeah, I got wind magic. They told me the skill I want depends on training.
Wind magic? Damn it! That useless magic is worthless. Just throw it away.
Hey Marco, do not say that. You can use fire magic, but lightning spells are completely beyond you, right? If skills depend on training, then he can still become capable?
I trained for 7 years before I finally obtained the archery skill. Hearing that your desired skill depends on training makes me jealous.
Apparently, there are also things like aptitude. It does not mean I will automatically get the skill I want.
Well, for people like us who make a living around the town, we do not need fancy magic or skills anyway. Let us take it easy.
With the scout Mintz in front, followed by Marco the fire mage and Edgar the short spear user, the group moved out. As usual, I walked behind Edgar. Behind me were Scott with the archery skill, Henry with the sword skill, and finally Ted as the rear guard. We left the west gate and headed north across the grasslands. Today I could clearly see the wind flowing across the field. Since I was in the middle of the line, I left scouting to Mintz and observed the grass leaves while walking, smelling the wind. When wrapped in magic power, not only sight but hearing and smell become sharper, which helps a lot when searching for medicinal herbs. Today we were heading toward places where purple sapgrass and lotus cough flowers grew, ingredients used for potions. After walking for about an hour, a terrible smell hit my nose. Edgar suddenly stopped and made a bird call while raising his right arm at a right angle, signaling everyone to stop. Ted quietly approached him.
What is wrong?
I can faintly smell goblins.
The wind was weak and the tall grass barely moved, so he could not determine the wind direction. I had never told them I could wrap myself in magic power, so I pretended not to notice the foul smell. But goblin magic stones were worth 3,000 dara each, so we could not ignore it. I picked up some dry grass, crushed it into powder, and tossed it into the air to watch how it drifted. The powder flowed slightly with the wind, so I pointed toward the direction that seemed upwind. Ted watched what I did, exchanged a glance with Edgar, and tried the same method.
Looks like you are right.
Let us go. If it is goblins, it will be good money.
Following Ted's order, Mintz moved ahead in search of the goblins. Although Mintz had a rough idea of the direction, pushing through the tall grass gradually caused him to drift off course. Realizing the wind carrying the smell was shifting away from him, he stopped and tilted his head.
What is wrong? Wait a moment.
I pretended to sniff the wind and walked to Mintz. Of course, the goblin smell was not there. I stepped back toward the original spot, sniffed the wind again, and pointed toward the direction of the smell. Mintz returned to my position and sniffed the air. He nodded.
Your nose might be better than mine. You follow the scent.
I looked at Ted. He compared Mintz and me, then nodded. Moving through patches of thinner grass, I followed the scent. Soon, a powerful stench carried by the wind made everyone's expression tense. Everyone quietly readied their weapons. Mintz moved forward to confirm while I stepped behind Edgar and gripped the stick I used as a makeshift spear. Mintz returned and signaled with his fingers that there were 7 goblins. Ted seemed to hesitate for a moment while thinking about the formation.
Leader, what is wrong? Let us just kill them already.
Ted took a short spear from his magic pouch.
Leon, you have already completed the rite of bestowal. If you plan to become an adventurer someday, you need to prepare yourself.
He tossed the short spear toward me.
Follow Edgar's instructions and try thrusting once. Edgar, watch over Leon.
Ted grinned and took my stick before signaling everyone to take their positions.
I practice thrusting and sweeping strikes when I have free time, but facing real combat so suddenly makes me feel like I might wet myself rather than tremble with excitement.
Episode 3, First Battle. Edgar grabbed my sleeve and pulled me along as we quietly circled behind the goblins. The goblins were sitting in a circle, noisily shouting while greedily devouring something, and they did not seem to notice that we had surrounded them.
This is the perfect formation for a fireball. His accuracy is bad, so keep your head down.
True enough. Marco likes to brag about being a fire mage, but his accuracy and power are questionable. Still, we are more than 20 meters away, so it should be fine.
Across the goblins I could see Marco's face, and I could tell he was chanting. A fireball floated in front of his outstretched arm, then shot toward the goblins that were in the middle of their meal. The fireball exploded above the goblins who were eating in a circle, knocking several of them flat. Immediately after, arrows fired by Mintz and Scott flew through the air and pierced the chests of 2 goblins.
Good, let's go.
I followed behind Edgar toward the goblins. Ted stood in position guarding Mintz and Scott while watching them fire their second arrows. The goblin Edgar targeted was the largest one with its back turned to us. Even though this was my first battle, seeing a goblin nearly as tall as me made my legs slow down. Right in front of me, Henry jumped into the group and finished off one that had fallen. Ted was facing the big goblin, but instead of attacking, they were simply glaring at each other.
Leon, you are behind it, so grip the short spear firmly and ram into it.
Edgar shouted and shoved my back forward. In desperation, I charged with the short spear held low at my waist. Unlike stabbing a tree during practice, the strange resistance and the goblin screaming "Jai" made my skin crawl. The goblin's back was right in front of me. The smell was terrible. and when I kicked it to get away, I ended up falling onto my backside.
Good. For a first fight that took some courage, now finish it off, and you will be a proper fighter.
When I looked at the goblin again, blood was flowing from its back as it screamed and tried to stand. Edgar and Ted were watching me without delivering the final blow. Mintz and Scott were also watching with grins on their faces.
Leon, stab the goblin in the neck from the side and slide the short spear through!
Henry shouted while resting his sword on his shoulder. If I froze up now, I would be laughed at forever, so I tightened my grip on the blood-dripping spear and thrust at the goblin from the side. Unlike the trees I practiced on, the goblin was thrashing around. I had to thrust 3 times before I finally managed to kill it. By the time it collapsed, all the strength drained from my body, and I nearly sat down on the spot. I splashed water over my head with water magic to wash off the blood before starting my job of removing the magic stones.
Goblin magic stones are 3,000 dara each. 7 of them makes 21,000 dara. If we gather medicinal herbs for half a day after this, we should make about 20,000 more. Even after paying me 2,000 dara, everyone will still earn about 6,500 each. For work around the town, that is pretty good.
I handed the extracted magic stones to Ted, and we began moving toward our destination to collect herbs. In the center of the line, I could only practice detection to the left and right, and if the time dragged on, my concentration would fade. When I got tired, I switched to practicing presence detection while walking. I felt something a little distance away, but since nobody else noticed, I kept quiet and continued forward.
Judging by the presence, it is probably a small animal, maybe a horned rabbit or a hedgehog, but it would be a waste to miss a potential meal. If I could at least scare it out of hiding, that would be nice, but a small whirlwind might not be enough.
While practicing detection and presence sensing, I decided to practice making whirlwinds in between. A whirlwind suddenly appearing in the grassland would look unnatural, so I used the fact that I could see the wind itself. I sent magic power upward to a point slightly above the ground in the distance while thinking whirlwind. A tiny whirlwind appeared.
What is wrong, Leon?
I thought I saw something. That was close. Yesterday it was dark, so I could not see it, but seeing the whirlwind made me stop walking. It looked a little like the whirlwinds I saw in anime, but since I have only ever seen whirlwinds in anime, imagining it that way naturally makes it look similar.
Leon, how do you even use wind magic?
I just received it yesterday. Do not ask the impossible. You cannot even see wind, and there is nobody who can teach me. Practicing skills should come first. Detection skill, presence sensing skill, short spear skill, archery skill, appraisal skill, and if there is a skill that lets you blend into forests or grasslands, I want that too.
You sure are dreaming big? Do you really think someone who got wind magic could obtain skills like that?
Maybe not, but I will still practice. If I'm going to become an adventurer, those skills are necessary.
If skills that easy existed, I would have gotten appraisal already and be living comfortably in town.
Leon was told that the skill he wants depends on training. Then there is no harm in practicing, so do your best. If you obtain detection or archery skills, it will make my job easier.
Yeah, if Leon learns detection, we will find more prey. Then we will raise your pay too.
Your nose already helped when we searched for goblins earlier, so make sure you find plenty of prey.
While occasionally creating whirlwinds high in the distance, I focused on gathering medicinal herbs. At the end of the day, I received 2,000 dara and returned home. 2 months passed after the day of bestowal, and the grasslands in the peak of summer were unbearably humid. While we were resting in the shade of a tree, Marco sneered at me.
Hey, try blowing that wind you received.
I would love to enjoy a cool breeze myself, but I am still training and can only make tiny whirlwinds. If I showed him that small whirlwind, Marco would definitely mock me.
Marco bragged about being a fire mage, but he was terrible at detection and presence sensing, and he could barely use a spear or a bow. The others only kept him because his fireball could drive away dog or wolf-type monsters and was useful against goblin groups. Apparently, when Marco joined, he insisted the group needed a party name and proposed the name Linus's Blast. Ted and the others did not care about a name, but they wanted a fire mage, so they agreed. Later, they laughed about how it turned out to be a bad choice.
Even with poor accuracy and small power, his volleyball-sized fireball flies at arrow speed and explodes. If it hits, it can kill a wolf or a small hornboar, but enemies do not stand still, so it almost never hits. In my head, I secretly call Marco's fireball a deer scarer.
Just as I stood up after resting, I heard rustling in the grass a short distance away. I gave the signal to stop and stared in the direction of the sound. It did not appear on my detection ability, so I looked at the scout Mintz and pointed with my spear toward the noise. After observing for a while, Mintz raised his arm and signaled that it was a horn boar. Following Ted's instructions, we quietly took our positions. Mintz and Scott drew their bows and fired. The horn boar screamed "Buigi" and started running, but arrows from both sides pierced its thighs and slowed it down. At the same moment the second arrows were fired, a fireball exploded with a PAAN sound. "Move!" At Ted's command, Edgar and Scott attacked from both sides, slashing and stabbing. Ted stood in front of the horn boar to block its movement. A third arrow shot at close range struck its heart. The horn boar collapsed, and Ted finished it off while wiping sweat from his forehead.
They say they specialize in herb gathering, but they are always very efficient in combat. After letting enough blood flow out, Ted stored the body in his magic pouch. It is still strange to see every time. A rank 3 magic pouch costs 15 gold coins, about 1,500,000 dara, expensive, but not impossible to buy someday. If I can make it as an adventurer, I want one too, but first I should get a rank 1 wallet pouch. Even that costs 2 gold coins, 200,000 dara. My helper wages are nowhere near enough.
Good catch.
It just happened to make noise, so I thought something was there.
Something this size should sell for about 35,000 dara.
It would be nice if we could hunt one like this every day!
They rarely appear around here.
All right, back to gathering herbs.
While picking sarasa berries under the shade of trees, I tried saying appraisal berry in my mind.
Of course, it only says berry. I already know that. It never says medicinal herb. I can recognize leaves, flowers, and roots I already know, but without proper appraisal, I can only gather herbs I recognize.
After picking all the sellable sarasa berries, we decided to return to town a little early. Henry said that among the several sarasa trees here, the harvest would probably end after 1 or 2 more visits this year. Everyone was in a good mood since the horn boar and the berry harvest would bring about 15,000 dara each. While returning to town in our usual formation, I created another whirlwind diagonally above the path ahead.
Still disappointing. Even though I imagine it correctly, the whirlwind only becomes about 1 meter tall and 50 centimeters wide. It never grows beyond the small leaf swirling whirlwind I saw in anime. I tried increasing the magic power from the 100 divisions I usually use, but the size and power did not change, because I can actually see the wind's movement. It is frustrating that no matter how much I practice, the wind magic does not become stronger.
While waiting in line at the west gate, I received my usual 2,000 dara helper pay and headed home. Even while walking, I sent magic power forward while thinking whirlwind and wondered how I could create a powerful tornado instead. When I returned home, nobody was there because my mother had the late shift, so I began practicing life magic. I had been practicing life magic ever since I received it, but after gaining wind magic, I could now add magic power to it.
Even so, the most I can do is produce enough water with water magic to fill a small pot or create a flame slightly bigger than my fist. In light novels, they splash water into wooden tubs or create flash-like light spells, but reality is harsh. Still, being able to produce a full pot of water instead of just a cup is helpful. I want to turn the light spell into something as bright as a flash to use for self-defense, so I keep practicing.
Episode 4, Black Bear. Even when autumn arrived, Leon's life magic had barely improved. His water spell could only fill a wooden bucket about 70%. His flame spell was still only about the size of 1.5 fists. The brightness of light had increased somewhat, but it was still slightly weaker than a car's high beams. At night it felt dazzling, but that was about it. It seemed that, by nature, life magic simply did not need to become powerful magic. However, the practice had produced one useful result. Clean had become extremely effective, and Leon had learned to use Refresh as well. His mother was delighted about that, and before he knew it, he had been appointed the personal massage attendant for both his mother and father. Furthermore, his mother discovered that if Leon poured magic power into flame and used it as kindling, it was very convenient for cooking. As a result, every time meals were prepared, Leon was forced to produce flame. If he poured even half of 1% of his magic power into it, the flame would burn inside the stove for over 30 minutes. Naturally, that made it quite useful. Ralph, who worked part-time in the same workplace as Leon's mother as a waiter and cleaner, looked at Leon with a complicated expression whenever he saw this. Leon had more or less given up expecting much from life magic, but he still intended to continue practicing. As for wind magic, he once tried changing the image he had conceived during summer from a small whirlwind to a tornado. The result was that he accidentally created a tornado high above outside the window, nearly causing a massive disaster. The only reason catastrophe had been avoided was probably because he had limited the magic power to less than 1/100th. Or perhaps it was simply luck hidden in the darkness of the night. After that frightening experience, Leon returned to practicing whirlwinds. He practiced creating them and then dismissing them. Every evening, Leon returned home, placed the 2,000 dara he earned for helping out on the table, and then spent the time before dinner staring up at the sky through the window while muttering to himself. His mother began to worry. Fortunately, thanks to his life magic practice, Leon eventually discovered that if he withdrew the magic power in the same way he extinguished the flame spell, he could also make a whirlwind vanish. Relieved, he stopped creating whirlwinds entirely and instead began spending his days thinking about other ways to apply wind magic. November arrived. Because the group frequently approached the forest boundary to gather fruits and mushrooms, Leon had more opportunities to work near the forest. His scouting ability had improved to the point that it was nearly on par with Mint's. At times, he could even serve as the party's scout in Mintz's place. His daily training steadily paid off. His search ability now covered roughly 60 meters. At the same time, his presence detection skill had grown to around 40 meters. Within that distance, he could detect wild beasts lying in ambush while hiding their presence. Through practice, Leon had successfully acquired both search and presence detection as skills. The problem was the appraisal skill. Even now, when someone handed him a piece of grass or a leaf, he could only determine whether it was a medicinal herb or a weed about 50% of the time. Still, thanks to this progress, his daily wage increased to 3,000 dara.
If Leon became proficient with a short spear and a bow before the day of departure, he would officially recognize Leon as a member of the party.
Marco seemed to have no objection, and the other members told Leon it was only natural after all. With both him and Mint scouting, they had been finding more prey than before. Only Marco remained cold. Perhaps it was a magician's pride, or perhaps it was because Marco had been unfriendly ever since Leon first joined the Linus Explosion group as a helper. Leon responded by casually ignoring him. If Leon could use wind magic the way he envisioned, he believed he could become a more powerful mage than Marco. When the day of departure arrived, Leon planned to temporarily leave the explosion group and test the magic he had been thinking about. He could already use several wind spells, but he had told no one about them. He had learned to change the size of whirlwinds and control their wind strength. Since he already knew he could create tornadoes, he believed they could become powerful weapons with proper adjustment. Another idea involved sliding two currents of wind past each other to create a vacuum. However, that was too dangerous to test inside the city. He had once experimented by trapping a bat flying through the twilight sky inside an expanding air balloon and dropping it to the ground. The bat that had been flying suddenly dropped like a stone. People nearby found it strange, so Leon stopped that experiment after only one attempt. February arrived. Leon's second older brother, Ralph, was recognized for his work at the hotel and was promoted to a position as a room attendant and waiter who lived on site. Following his eldest brother, Morris, Ralph also left home. Now Leon lived only with his parents. His parents told him that once he left as well, the house would feel lonely, so he should stay home as long as possible. His older sister Belinda visited frequently, so Leon felt that the house would not become lonely. But according to his sister, Leon was the youngest and smallest, so he should be extra filial toward their parents. From the perspective of a sister 9 years older, Leon, who resembled their mother, looked small. However, in just 4 months, Leon would reach the day of departure. Despite that, his family still treated him like a child. Fortunately, even after that day arrived, they had not told him to move out. So even if he became a member of the explosion group, he planned to continue commuting from home. The Black Bear ambush happened on a warm day in April. Leon and the others were gathering medicinal herbs near the forest. During the gathering, a group of goblins approached. They stopped collecting herbs and began exterminating the goblins. Just as they had defeated roughly half of the 9 goblins and their guard had dropped, Leon suddenly felt a chilling sensation.
Run!
Leon shouted and leapt sideways to avoid the charging mass. The creature rushed past him and immediately began devouring one of the fallen goblins. Without paying the group any attention at all, the beast greedily ate the goblin corpse. It was a black bear.
Quietly signaled the group to retreat without provoking it.
They were carefully backing away while holding their breath to avoid irritating the beast. Then suddenly, a loud explosion rang out. A fireball exploded directly in front of the black bear's nose. The startled beast jerked back in surprise.
I did it! My fireball has the black bear completely immobilized. I'll finish it off with another shot.
Marco's irritating voice echoed through the clearing. The black bear lifted its gaze from the goblin corpse and looked directly at the group. With a furious roar, it bellowed. Another fireball struck with a loud explosion. It had no effect at all. The enraged black bear slammed its paw into the ground and charged toward them. "Run!" Screams overlapped as the group scattered in all directions. They had already been loosening their formation after surrounding the goblins, so everyone fled separately. Behind them, the black bear's roaring mixed with the screams of adventurers. Thinking that stopping meant death, Leon ran desperately. His foot caught in thick grass. He fell and rolled into a shallow depression in the ground. The smell suggested it was a horned boar's den. Leon held his breath and listened carefully. After confirming there was no sign of the black bear nearby, he finally exhaled in relief. His throat was completely dry. Cold sweat soaked his entire body. To calm himself, Leon summoned water with his water spell and gulped it down. He wondered what to do next. He heard screams 2 or 3 more times in the distance, but he believed at least half of the party must have escaped. Since they had been fighting goblins, presence detection had not been useful. Still, Leon had never imagined that a black bear would appear in such a shallow part of the forest. The beast had been completely absorbed in eating the bleeding goblins. The group had not even been in its sight. If only they had quietly retreated as Ted instructed. Damn it, Marco. You idiot. Did you seriously think that pathetic fireball could kill a black bear? After calming down slightly and drinking water, Leon searched the area again. No beasts nearby. He did not know exactly where he was, but the place where they had been fighting goblins was a familiar herb-gathering location. He could simply run back to town, but abandoning companions he had worked with for nearly 3 years felt wrong. Someone might still be injured, so Leon decided to return and check. Using both search and presence detection carefully, Leon returned to the goblin battle site. Henry's body lay crushed on the ground, a deep claw mark carved across his back. Beyond the mutilated goblin corpses, Edgar stared at the sky with a frozen expression of terror. Neither body had been eaten much because their armor got in the way, but even so, their limbs had been torn off. Leon could not carry both bodies back himself. He at least hoped to retrieve their belongings.
Leon, you're alive! My life was spared, but thanks to Marco, I ended up like this. Who died?
Henry and Edgar are dead. The others seem to have escaped. How's your leg?
When Henry went down, I tried to help him up. One swipe from that bear sent me flying all the way here. That's what saved my life. But with a wound like this, even the guild's potions can only stop the bleeding. My adventuring days are over.
Leon looked at the wound. Ted's thigh had been deeply ripped open. The bleeding had stopped and the wound had closed, but the flesh was uneven and deformed. Without a cane, Ted probably would not even be able to walk. Being an adventurer was no longer possible.
Leon, make a splint. We're taking the 2 of them back to town.
Ted handed Leon a knife. Leon cut a suitable branch, wrapped Ted's thigh with a pouch of medicinal herbs, placed small branches as braces, and tied everything tightly with rope. He helped Ted stand using a stick like a short spear as a cane. Even with Ted reinforcing his body with magic power, it was difficult for Leon due to his small frame. They stored the 2 bodies inside a magic pouch and began walking toward the road. But with Ted losing blood and unable to walk properly, their progress was painfully slow. By the time they finally reached the road, the sun had already begun to set. Fortunately, a passing cargo wagon allowed them to ride in the back, and they managed to return to town. Ted thanked the driver and pressed a silver coin into his hand.
I was fighting the black bear, but everyone abandoned me and ran away.
You idiot. Did you seriously think your fireball could harm a black bear? If we had quietly retreated like Ted signaled, no one would have been hurt.
That's a lie! We had surrounded it and were preparing to attack. The moment I fired my fireball, all you cowards ran away. Don't blame me.
Adventurers returning from their day's work heard the shouting. Curious, They began entering the guild building one after another. Chapter 5, Wind Magic Test. The hand gripping Leon's shoulder tightened. The sound of grinding teeth came from beside him.
Move out, Leon.
Ted's voice sounded like it came from the depths of hell. Leon supported him and pushed open the guild door. In front of the counter, Mince and Marco were glaring at each other with a guild clerk standing between them. Curious adventurers had gathered around to watch.
Go kick that bastard's ass!
Leon did not need to be told. He pushed through the crowd and moved behind Marco. Mince noticed Leon and looked shocked, but greetings could wait. Leon asked the adventurers behind Marco to step back. Then he ran forward and drove his foot up between Marco's legs.
Ugh.
Marco groaned, and the crowd of adventurers burst into loud cheers.
Leon, you are alive. Ted is alive too. Where is Scott? I have not seen him. When I returned, Marco was already running his mouth.
Leon pushed through the crowd again and brought Ted forward. Mince saw Ted's injured leg and let out a pained groan.
Did you really think your pathetic fireball could kill a black bear? If you had followed my orders, those two men would still be alive.
So the story he told earlier was a lie!
I do not know what nonsense he told you. We were hunting goblins when a black bear appeared. It was not even attacking us. It was busy eating a dead goblin. I ordered everyone to retreat quietly. Then this idiot fired a fireball. A spell that barely works on fangdogs. All he did was hit the bear on the nose and make it furious. I almost died too, but the kid came back for us and we barely made it to town.
The kid? Is he part of your party?
No, he was only helping gather herbs before his coming of age. A child came back ready to die because he was worried about us. Meanwhile, the idiot who caused everything ran back to town first. You are ready for what comes next, right?
Ted pulled the knife from his belt.
Wait. Even if someone dies because of a mistake inside a party, we cannot allow a lynching.
Guildmaster 2 men died because of him, and the fourth still has not returned to town.
Ted, you are alive.
Scott's voice came from behind them.
Yeah, I am alive. Looks like you made it too. Edgar and Henry are dead, and my leg ended up like this.
Scott looked at Ted's injured leg and sighed. Then he kicked the unconscious Marco.
Guildmaster, we have 4 witnesses. 2 men died because of him. We are expelling him from the party. The party deposit he paid will go to the families of the dead. You have no objection, right?
Looking at your leg, the story seems clear enough. Handle your internal matters yourselves. Just report the location where the black bear appeared to the guild desk.
With the guildmaster's words, Marco's punishment was decided. Expulsion from the party.
Marco, disappear from the town of Linus. Even if you stay, your reputation as a useless mage will never disappear.
If we meet outside the city, you will repay this debt.
Yeah. We will make you fight goblins until you die.
After declaring Marco expelled, Ted grabbed Leon's shoulder and told him to go to the adventurer shop. Inside the shop, Ted bought a rank 210 magic pouch. He stuffed Leon's short bow arrows and short spear into the pouch and pushed it into Leon's hands while asking the shopkeeper to register Leon as the user.
Ted, I cannot accept this. If you quit being an adventurer, you will need money.
Do not worry. We have plenty saved in the guild as party funds. If you had not come back, I would be inside a beast's stomach right now. If you plan to become an adventurer, keep it. A 210 pouch has space of 2 cubic meters and a time factor of 10. Food that normally spoils in 1 hour lasts 10 hours inside. Something that would spoil by tomorrow can last 10 days. It stays warm for the first 4 or 5 days, then slowly cools. My leg looks bad, but my family are barrel makers. When it heals, I will start as an apprentice, so do not worry.
Less than 2 months remained before Leon's coming of age. Before registering as an adventurer, Leon decided to test the wind magic he had been thinking about. That meant going out alone to the grasslands. He chose a place not far from the entrance gate. The magic pouch Ted gave him was rank 210 and had cost 5 gold coins. Leon had planned to buy one eventually, so he accepted it gratefully. If his wind magic worked, he could hunt small animals or birds and store them inside. Then he could repay Ted the 5 gold coins. Leon's detection and presence sensing were already considered reliable. If the magic worked, hunting near the town should not be too dangerous. Leon forgot one important detail.
Hey kid, where are the others you usually run with?
They were injured by a black bear. I want to gather herbs nearby and earn some money.
The guard knew Leon had spent nearly 3 years working with the party called Bakuretsu.
Fine, but stay where the gate is visible.
Understood.
Leon walked about 50 meters from the gate and stepped into the grassland. He sat in a shallow hollow and began testing his wind magic. First, he practiced enlarging a small whirlwind.
Small whirlwind.
Leon defined the small whirlwind as 1 meter wide and 3 meters tall, shaped like a spindle. He poured magic power into the spell. Leon had practiced whirlwinds many times, so changing the size was easy. But dry grass and dust started swirling violently around him. Leon quickly cut off the magic and the whirlwind vanished. He glanced toward the gate. The guards were not looking, so he sighed with relief.
Small whirlwind.
This time he created it 45 degrees above him and focused on increasing the rotation speed. Changing the rotation required no additional magic power. The speed responded freely to his will. But after some time the whirlwind vanished on its own. Leon tried again and slowly counted. 180 seconds.
3 minutes. Just like Ultraman.
Leon laughed quietly. After several attempts, he became confident that even a small whirlwind could throw a person around if the rotation was fast enough. He also discovered the size could be freely adjusted. From then on, he decided to create a small whirlwind first and then enlarge it as needed. Following advice he once read in light novels, Leon counted each time he used magic. After 50 casts, he stopped and gathered herbs while waiting for his magic power to recover. Without a clock or appraisal skill, it was mostly guesswork. Even so, he decided to stay aware of his remaining magic power. When the sun reached overhead, Leon finished eating and tried creating a tornado.
Small tornado.
A spinning column of wind appeared in the air. Being able to see the flow of air was extremely useful. Leon defined the tornado as a cylinder 1 meter wide and 5 meters tall. Like the whirlwind, its size could be adjusted later. The enormous tornadoes seen in anime and television that connected sky and ground were far too dangerous, so he avoided them. This tornado used only 1% of his magic power, so it could not become enormous anyway. Unlimited experiments would wait until after he registered as an adventurer. The rest of the day, Leon practiced creating a horizontal ring of wind around himself like a spinning donut. He even tried sliding the wind ring across the ground to kick up blinding clouds of dust. The idea worked better than expected. A ring of violent wind with a radius of 2 or 3 meters and height of 2 to 4 meters could probably knock intruders away. If Leon could maintain that storm ring right around his body, he might survive wandering the grasslands alone. After a week of practice, Leon became comfortable controlling the storm ring. Then he tried a different idea. He created a vertically rotating wind ring and placed stones on a rock to launch them. The image in his mind was a rope with a weight spinning vertically before being thrown. But every attempt made the stone roll away before launching. Finally, Leon forced the rotating ring directly onto the stone and it launched successfully. However, controlling it was extremely difficult. Remembering the phrase, "If pushing fails, try pulling," he reversed the method. Instead of pushing from outside, he tried pulling from inside. Leon dropped a stone into a spinning wind ring about 50 centimeters wide and 3 meters tall. The stone spun violently. Then it shot into the sky and vanished.
I forgot about control.
Leon sighed. Next, he dropped a small stone into the spinning ring again. This time, he kept it suspended in the rotation without letting it sink. Just before the stone reached the lowest point, he released it. The stone slammed into the slope of the hollow with a heavy thud. The attack worked, but it required too much time. Leon also had to watch the stone until launch. Ideally, he wanted to fire stones instantly from the ground without delay. That required a sudden, straight blast of wind. From his position, the wind needed to accelerate instantly toward the target, at least 100 kilometers per hour. Professional baseball pitchers could throw around 150 kilometers per hour, so Leon wanted even greater speed. The experiment proved extremely difficult. Still, Leon believed that if he mastered it, he could launch stone bullets, arrows, or even short spears. Despite relentless practice, the technique would not work. Leon reconsidered his approach. He searched his memory for ways air could move objects. 2 ideas appeared in his mind: air rifles and blowguns. Both used air pressure to launch objects through a tube. If Leon created a tube of wind and compressed air inside it, the stone should fire forward. Since wind magic allowed him to control air freely, it should be possible. The idea was simple. The execution was not. Leon placed a stone inside a spiral tube of wind. He forced compressed air through the funnel-shaped channel that narrowed toward the end. The stone fired out. A sharp popping sound echoed like a paper cap gun. The power was impressive. A hornboar would likely die from a single hit. A hard stone larger than a fist moving at high speed would cause massive damage even if it did not kill instantly. Rapid fire was impossible for now. But the technique was already more than enough. Improving the firing rate would become Leon's next challenge.